I'm Mrs. Cleaver.
From Television City in Hollywood.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller plays.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
We're on a mission from God.
Run, Forrest, run!
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
You had me at hello.
Nanu.
Baby, you're the great.
I'm not going to be ignored.
Here comes the judge.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I got nowhere else to go.
Small cowbell.
That fashion.
There's anything wrong with that. You can't handle the truth.
I'm not an actor. I'm a movie star.
That's the story of my life. No respect. I don't get no respect at all.
I'm the dude.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
And now for something completely different.
There's no business like show business, like no business I know.
Welcome to Where Hollywood Hides. This is podcast episode number 52. My name is Bob McCullough.
And my name is Suzanne Herrera-McCullough.
Hi, Suzanne.
Happy New Year's, Bob.
Yeah, another year.
Before we begin, I'd like to mention one of our favorite sponsors. This is the only place to order flowers online, so whether you're looking for roses, orchids, gift baskets, flowering plants, wedding bouquets, 1-800-Flowers.com has the absolute best in quality and service. And the best way to get that service and the absolute best prices, whether you're looking for delivery across town or on the other side of the world, is by going to wherehollywoodhides.com and clicking on the 1-800-Flowers.com link. So flowers are always the best gift to give. Don't you think, Bob?
Absolutely. And Valentine's Day is coming, so
That's right.
I got the hint.
Good. Roses are my favorite.
What color do you like?
Yellow or red.
Oh, okay.
Depending on my mood.
All right. All right. Long stem, short stem, bouquet?
Long stem. The expensive kind.
Of course. Nothing but the best.
Just want to remind everybody that we are gearing up for the award ceremonies taking place at the beginning of this year. We have the Golden Globes, January 8th, People's Choice, January 18th, Grammy Awards, February 12th, and the big Oscar Academy Award, February 26th.
I guess I better get the tux cleaned, huh?
Yeah.
I better get ready.
Can you still fit into yours?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't think we'll be going this year.
No?
Neither one of us are nominated.
Well,
Actually,
it's still a lot of fun to go.
Yes. It's been a while, though, since we've gone.
Yeah, but what a crowd. It's always terrific energy.
And a lot of new faces as well.
Oh, for sure,
You know, some of the best actors popping up, and there's a lot of buzz, is Jeff Bridges and Casey Affleck, as well as best actresses, Emma Stone, Annette Bening, and Natalie Portman.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are just a handful.
Oh, Natalie Portman was unbelievable in Jackie.
If you haven't seen La La Land, we saw it. And once you get into the fact that it's a musical, it's really good.
That's why I'm still dancing.
Oh, yes. Yes, you feel like dancing afterwards.
Right, absolutely. Anybody can tap dance, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And before we go on, we generally do not mention celebrities that have passed away, because if we did, we would be here for an hour.
Yeah, every year at this time.
But I do want to mention Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher. Then I started to look at the list of actors that have passed away this year, and it is astounding.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Been not a great year. 15 off the top of my head that everyone would know. I'll make this quick. David Bowie, Gary Shandling, Carrie Fisher, Gary Marshall, Muhammad Ali, even though he was not an actor, he was quite the celebrity. George Kennedy, Patty Duke, Nancy Reagan, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Doris Roberts, Florence Henderson, Alan Thicke, Prince, Debbie Reynolds, and Gene Wilder.
Crazy. That's crazy.
It's been one of those years. Anyway, we take our hats off to them. These were
Absolutely
fabulous actors, and they've left many memories.
Yeah. They're going to be missed for sure. You know, one of the things about being in the entertainment business is you meet a lot of different kinds of people. Many people are fabulous. Many people are not so fabulous. Some people are actually difficult to. One of the most fabulous people I've ever worked with is our interview guest today. He is a writer, director, producer who had his origins back in what I would call the halcyon days of Hollywood. Let me just read you some of his credits as a director. This is one man now, keep that in mind. This is not 6 people I'm talking about. He directed the TV series Jag, Highlander, Zorro, Magnum P.I., Spencer for Hire, Airwolf, The Fall Guy, Quincy, Simon and Simon, The Love Boat, Vegas, Hawaii Five-0, Barnaby Jones, The Saint, The Avengers. Not only that, he wrote on shows like Magnum P.I., Heart to Heart, Airwolf, Spencer for Hire, and The $6 Million Man. And in his early years, he appeared as an actor and stuntman in movies you might have heard about. Thunder Road that starred Robert Mitchum, Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, Spartacus with Kirk Douglas, The Sundowners, The Guns of Navarone, Tarzan, Tom Jones, The Dirty Dozen, and Cleopatra. There isn't a credit list anywhere in Hollywood like that of my great friend and a really wonderful guy. I think you'll agree, Suzanne.
Oh, yes. Very impressive man.
Ray Austin.
And I loved his accent when you worked with him. Oh, my God. I
Yeah.
could just hang around him all day.
I think our listeners will be able to guess where he was originally from.
So I can't wait to speak to Ray Austin.
Mr. Austin.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
Hello, beautiful one. How are you?
I'm fine. It's been a long time.
It has certainly been a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And I can tell by the first words out of your mouth, nothing has changed.
No, not a lot. I'm just a bit older. That's the difference.
So, Ray, this podcast is heard around the world, and a lot of our listeners are fascinated by what we call the classic years of television and film, and other members of the audience are intrigued about how a Hollywood career actually happens. And you've had an extensive, I'm not going to insult you by saying you go back to the silence, but you have an incredible history.
Very impressive resume.
You have a very unique history, and I think people would be fascinated to hear it. So let's go back to the very, very beginning. Give us an idea what your childhood was like, where you were born. You're obviously not from Texas.
No, I was born in London within the sound of Bow Bells. And if you're born in London within the sound of Bow Bells, like the Queen technically, you are a Cockney. Bow Bells is a church in London which is very near St Thomas's Hospital and Buckingham Palace. And if you're born within the sound of Bow Bells, technically you are a Cockney. So I was born in London. I'm born in the war years when the bombs were dropping and Mr. Hitler was trying to blow us to pieces. And I used to go to school and the siren would go on the way home and we used to run for the shelters.
Wow, how stressful. For a little boy.
It was very scary. My mother and father were not rich people. My father was a tailor. My mother worked part-time in a garage in Malden. But we just had nothing except what we stood up in and the bedroll, which was in the underground for the next night.
How old were you, Ray?
I was I don't think I was about 7 then, 7 or 8.
Just a little guy.
I was the only child, and they were wonderful, and so were all our family.
So you were educated in England's public school system?
Yeah, in the public school system, except for one part where I went to college. I went to Brighton College, and that was a fluke because what happened was our schools were getting bombed as well as Merton Board Mills was getting bombed. So a lot of children were evacuated out of London to the country or to the seaside. Because what Hitler used to do, you see, he used to send those planes over at night to bomb London and the heart of London, St Paul's and all that area and the docks. But on their way back, if they had bombs left, they used to drop them on the way back in the suburbs, like where we were in South Wimbledon and Tooting and places like that. So it got very scary. But by the time they got to the coast or the country, they had no bombs or no ammunition left, so they just went back to Germany. So the children were evacuated. We were evacuated with our gas mask and the label round our neck with our name on them. We were sent off to different places. But what I was sent off to was a place called Lancing near Brighton. But when we went to Brighton, they had to put us in schools. So I was one of the lucky ones, was put into Brighton College, which people paid for, and you took big exams to go to Brighton College. And the Brighton College school children and the college kids there really resented the fact that they got all these little Cockney boys and girls coming to their school, because there was nowhere else for us to go. So on my resume, I had Brighton College.
That's quite a distinction for a Cockney, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for any of us, because we used to drive the toffee-nose kids, as we called them in those days, insane. We were these little Cockney kids coming down from London, and all their parents had paid a fortune to get them into Brighton College, or they'd spat exams like going to Eton and Oxford and Cambridge, and we were coming down taking over. It was very funny in those days, very funny.
So at what point did you get bitten by the Hollywood bug?
In England in those days, we had the national service. You had to go in the army for 18 months. Everybody had to go in, all boys used to have to go in the army for 18 months. It was national service. So I had to go into the army at 18. So I went into the army, not a very nice person. I used to have a bit of a temper, and I used to get in fisticuffs and that sort of nonsense and get in trouble. So that when I went into the army, I went into the regiment called the Royal Artillery. No choice about it. You had to go, otherwise you went to prison. So I went resenting everybody and hating everybody, and determined that I was going to do what I wanted to do, and no one was going to tell me what to do. I wound up in a place called Oswestry in Wales. That was for my basic training. And we used to have to do rifle drill and all this nonsense and PT. I was always very good at PT. I excelled at it. I could do somersaults and stand on my hands and all that nonsense. So we used to have to do this PT, and we had a physical training instructor whose name was Tiger Mel Barnett. He was the British weightlifting champion, but he was also in the Army Physical Training Corps. He ran the place for recruits. We were all compelled to go and do up, down, all that. And I got very lippy one day, quite stupidly. Said something back and said something back. So he dismissed the class. He told me to stay back. He said, Austin, stay back. And he was a short man, but powerfully built. And he said, do you think you're the cock of the North, which was a Cockney expression. and I said, no. He said, yes, you do. He says, you think you're better than all this lot, don't you? I said, no, not at all. He said, you used to get in fights and all that, I hear. So I said, sometimes you think you're a bit of a fighter. I said, I'm okay. So he said, oh, yeah. And he pointed to his chin, and he said, go on, hit it. So I said, no, I'm not going to hit you. He said, nothing's going to happen to you. He said, there's no rank, no anything. He said, put it on there. And I thought about it for a half a second. And when I woke up...
Oh, no.
Oh, he knocked me straight. I don't even remember lifting my arm up. He knocked me straight out. I was on my arse. I mean, completely out. He grabbed me by the under the armpit, picked me up, and he says, don't come it again, do what I tell you. He said, otherwise I'll give you another one. 3 days later, I was sent to the adjutant's office. Tiger Mel Barnett was standing at the side of the adjutant's desk, and I thought, oh my God. But the adjutant said to me, he says, Tiger Mel Barnett, he says, you have a flair for gymnastics. He said, would you like to train as an Army physical training instructor? So I went and immediately moved to the Army Physical Training Corps to train as a regimental gymnast. I took to it like flying colours. I mean, I loved every moment of it. And I represented the British Army on the parallel and horizontal bar in the Army Olympics. But then I got my stripes and I was issued out to a regiment and became the physical training instructor for the Army. I finished the Army. I came out with a lot of diplomas, totally out of work. I didn't know what to do. The only job I got was teaching gymnastics at a boys' club in South Wimbledon at 7 shillings and sixpence an hour, 3 hours a week. That's all I could get. So I was really at a loss. So I went up to London. There was a chauffeur car firm. We're looking for drivers, and I took this job as a driver. And the manager sent me, and he said, you want to do a pickup at London Airport, Heathrow. He says, an actor coming over. So I go down, and who am I picking up? This fellow that comes out to the airport and says, hello, are you my driver? And it was Cary Grant.
Oh, wow.
So I started to look after Cary.
Now, when you met him at the airport, did you have any appreciation of what an incredible break that was? What an opportunity?
No.
Okay.
No, it was probably going to be a great tipper. That's about it. So he said he may want to go out in the evening, and he wasn't sure. So I sat in the car and waited one thing and another. I saw him go out and walk a little way down Park Lane towards Hyde Park Corner to a little coffee bar that was there. I followed on down just to see where he was going. And I saw him going to the coffee bar. I started to walk by the coffee bar. He spotted me and beckoned me in. So I went in and we sat down and I had coffee. And this was the beginning of frothy coffee, cappuccinos, you know.
Right.
Sure.
And we were sitting in there. And there was a guy in front of Cary. The guy then grabbed Cary by the shoulder, and I did a Tiger Mel Barnett on him. I knocked him straight on his arse. And from then on, Cary and I were And we, got on very, very well. Very, very well. Then they were making a series in England, in America at that time. They were shorts. In between the movies, they used to put on little shorts, 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So one of them was called Joe Doakes Behind the Eight Ball.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Sure.
So they had a stunt where they wanted someone to be on a horizontal bar, parallel bar, do kip-overs over, and then let go into the audience, crash into the audience. Well, they had lots of stuntmen who would sit in the audience and let a house fall on them, a car go over them. They'd do anything, but they didn't have a stuntman at that stage who could do kip-overs. So Paul Stader said to Blake, he said, wait a minute, he said, there's this English guy on the beach, a buddy of Cary's. He said, he's doing it all day outside on the sand. He's messing about doing it forever. So Paul Stader came to me and he said, do you want to do a stunt in a movie? So I said, yeah, sure. So anyway, I went along to the set and I did it. I did the kip-overs and landed on the stunt guys, which was Freddie Zandar, Charlie Horvat, Cy Goss, and a few of the others sitting there. And I did the stunt, got paid for it, and immediately a representative came to me from the Screen Actors Guild. He says, "You've got to join the Screen Actors Guild." He says, "You've got to join." Well, in those days, to get in the Screen Actors Guild was gold dust.
Exactly. It took an act of Congress to get in the Screen Actors
you couldn't get a ticket. You had to have a contract to get a part, and you had to have a part to get a contract. It was the catch-as-catch-can thing.
Right.
And so I had to join it, which I wanted to, because I'd known about Screen Actors Guild. Of course I do. So about 3 weeks later, Paul came to me again and said, "Listen, you want to do another job for the same thing?" He said, "You're playing a game of tennis, you win, and you go to jump the net and you fall flat on your face." So I said, okay, so I did it at the Beverly Hills racket, or wherever it was in Beverly Hills, there somewhere I did it. So they were just starting then a thing called the Stuntman's Association. And so in a matter of about 5 weeks, I got a Screen Actors Guild card, plus I was one of the founder members of the Stuntman's Association with Hoy and Stater and all those.
Fantastic, fantastic. It shows you the value of being in the right place at the right time and having some good contacts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then the next thing I got, which was hard to get in those days, was to get on Teddy O'Toole's answering service.
Right. In those days, for our audience who may not be old enough to know these things, before cell phones, before answering machines, if you received a lot of phone calls for your work, you had to hire an answering service and pay them a monthly fee to take your messages.
Absolutely. And also they were sort of your agent as well,
right?
Especially Teddy O'Toole. She was a wonderful lady. Her book was full up at that stage when I joined, but because of Paul Stader was her partner.
Right, you had to be somebody to be a Teddy's client.
Absolutely, and she had her office in Tower Records building, and the way they got started off, and they became so popular with Paul Stader and her started off the business, and it wasn't doing too bad. And someone called up for an actor one night, and Teddy O'Toole missed the call. The actor lost the job. She called Paul Stader, her partner, and said to Paul, I've done it, I've blown it. She said, I lost Fred Smith, or whatever his name was, his job. And I think the equity call then was, a minimum call was, I think, about $57 or something like that. And Paul said, pay him the money. So Teddy O'Toole sent him a check saying, I apologize, I lost the job for you as a check.
That's a good idea.
Oh, boy. Next day, their phone rang off the hook. They rang off the hook, and you could not get on Teddy O'Toole's service.
Right.
And Teddy O'Toole will find you anywhere. And no matter where they were, those girls at Teddy's, I remember once I was sitting in England with Brian Clement's house, and Teddy O'Toole found me there and said that I would need to go back for a job. I mean, they would never give up. Ever give up, and they were marvelous. And the next job I got was Blake was doing a show called Peter Gunn, and I got called to do a fight in a warehouse.
It sounded like you got busy.
Yeah, I got busy. I went back to England because Betsy Drake went over to England to do a picture with Kenneth Moore called Next to No Time, and Cary asked me to go over with her, which I did. Then I came back. Cary said to me he's going to do a picture called North by Northwest. And do I want to go on it with him? And I said, I can't. I said, because I'm on it already. He said, how? I said, because Paul stayed at Dublin, Cary. I said, and Paul's got me on the stunt team. So he said, that's okay. He said, work both in. And in the end, I doubled Martin Landau on Lincoln's nose and did the fall from the Martin.
Was that actually shot at Mount Rushmore?
We shot at Mount Rushmore, but all the stuff was done, all the fall stuff was done at MGM. They built it on the set of MGM. We did the climbing and that there.
So what was it like working with Hitchcock?
Marvelous. Hitchcock was good. He became a good friend, and that's where it all really started. And I got the other bug because I knew very early on, as a stuntman, I really didn't want to stay there. I wanted to be behind the camera. I'd had my chance at little acting parts and one thing and another. And I wanted to stay behind the camera. It's a funny story because we were shooting at the Plaza Hotel. The assistant said they wanted Cary. Would I go up and get him? He was up in his suite. So I went up to get Cary, and the camera was set up in the lobby of the Plaza facing the elevator. It's a scene where Cary comes out the elevator to leave the plaza. And I went up, so I said, Cary, I said, they're waiting for you downstairs. You want me to walk you down? And he said, yeah, because wherever he went, he was always trouble. People were always stopping him for autographs or someone. So I, got in the way of other people and stopped them doing it, as I had all the time with Cary. So we got in the elevator, come down, and the doors opened to the elevator, all the lights were on. Hitchcock was sitting at the camera in front of the elevator, ready to shoot. But Cary and I walked out of the elevator, past the lights, and he went to his chair, and people talked on one thing and another, and then they got ready to do the shot. I happened to be standing about 2 feet from Hitchcock. They put Cary in the elevator, take him up one floor to bring him down. And Hitchcock looked at me, he said, Ray, he said, what do you want to do with your life? He said, you're going to stay following Cary around all your life? And I said, no. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'll tell you what I want to do. I said, I want my name on my back of the chair like you.
Right. I like your job, right?
Yeah. So he laughed. He said, well, keep at it. It could happen.
For Hitchcock and Cary Grant, North by Northwest was really a very physical movie. There was a lot going on. Probably the most action-packed film either one of them ever did.
It was a good movie. And then we went off and did Operation Petticoat, again with Blake. I was on the stunt team with Hoy, because Hoy was running it. Robert Hoy was running that show.
And because you've had such a unique background, I mean, I can't fill up one hand with the number of stuntmen who've become directors.
And Hal Needham was the only other one.
Right.
But Hal Needham only ever worked normally with Burt.
That's right.
With Burt Reynolds.
That's right.
But I worked the world in the end. At any rate, that's what I told Hitchcock I wanted to do, and I was determined one way or the other it was going to happen. So now I go back and do odd jobs all round, and one thing and another. I knew Kirk Douglas because of Cary, and Tony Curtis because of Hoy, and Spartacus came up. So I worked on Spartacus.
Penalty of crucifixion has been set aside on the condition that you identify the slave called Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
Now, Ray, I want to ask you a question. Bob and I have gone back and forth on this because the topic came up last year. How tall would you say Kirk Douglas is?
Kirk, I would think, is probably 5'10".
Well, yeah, I just want a quick story, which I've mentioned on this podcast before. I was an usher, a page at NBC when Kirk Douglas made a very short cameo appearance on Laugh-In. And I had been raised in Hollywood and been around a lot of stars and met Elvis and Sammy Davis and all these guys. And I just remember Kirk Douglas walking onto the stage at NBC, and I was blown away by what I felt was absolute magnetic charisma. He was the kind of guy, when he walked in a room, you just felt this wave of energy. I don't know if it's his confidence or his intelligence, but to me, that was a real movie star.
So Bob had told me that Kirk Douglas was at least 6'1", and
I don't think so. I think he's about 5'10", 5'11", my height. And actually, the two people that signed my application for the Screen Actors Guild were Kirk Douglas and Cary Grant. They were my signatures on that form.
Well, you don't get any bigger than that.
Oh, God. It was marvelous.
So real quickly, looking at your credits, the shows you were working stunts on, The Guns of Navarone, Cleopatra, The Dirty Dozen, Tarzan, Spartacus. What was the most dangerous stunt you ever did?
A very simple stunt. A very simple stunt was the most dangerous stunt I ever did. It was on a movie in England, which was The Dirty Dozen, but the script was changed later and done Dirty Dozen. It was a war film where it virtually was the same picture as The Dirty Dozen. And they had a stunt there where I was a German soldier inside a tank, and the tank was going along a track. The Americans and the English at the side of the road. One of the Englishmen or American, I forget what it was, jumps up on the tank, throws a hand grenade down in the tank, blows it up, and I come out on fire. So I'm rigged for it. I have a uniform that's treated with pet jelly so it will catch on fire. Inside the tank, I have a detonator to let off a smoke charge, purely smoke, to come pouring out of the tank. Very simple stunt.
Doesn't sound so simple to me.
It was simple. I mean, I'm in a tank. The tank is going along. Enemy come up, which is British or American. He throws the grenade in, which is very simple. I'm in there. I see the grenade hit the ground, which isn't really a grenade. It's nothing. Now I press a charge, which sets off a smoke bomb. I wait for the smoke to start pouring out the turret. I hit another button which sets my uniform on fire, and I come out, throw myself out the tank, roll around a bit, and then the other stuntmen put me out. End of subject. When we rehearsed this, everything's okay, but what I didn't know was that when the guy who threw the hand grenade in slams the turret shut on the tank, there is a ratchet inside, and it automatically turns 8 turns and locks the tank. So I'm inside now.
Oh,
but the dummy grenade lands on the floor. So I pressed the first charge for the smoke. He slammed the top down, remember? Yeah. Now I press the second charge and set myself on fire, and I put my hand up to push the lid up, which is a bit heavy, but I know I could do it because I've done it, to push it up. And when I push, it won't open.
Oh,
it will not open. It will not open. There is a wheel there, and I have to turn that wheel. I don't know how many times, but it was when we worked it out after the stunt. 8 times I had to turn that wheel before it released the turret so I could get out. So I was inside the tank on fire with a smoke charge and my uniform on fire and no way out.
Brutal.
So I wound up 11 days in a hospital with skin coming off my back and my arms.
Oh,
and
how
that was
scary. You could have died.
The worst stunt. Yeah, I thought that I was goner. I thought I was a goner on that.
Brutal,
so
brutal.
That was nice. But I mean, the great thing was after I did Cleopatra and that's where everything went crazy for me. I went back to England. Because I knew that it wasn't working in America. I was earning good money as a stuntman, but I wanted so bad to get behind that camera, I didn't know how to do it. So I had calls to go back to England. I went back and walked straight into picture after picture and became one of the top stuntmen in the world at that stage. I mean, I also was playing great parts for Saturday night and Sunday morning, The Loneliness, a Long Distance Runner. Tom Jones gave me great credits. I did all the stunts on Tom Jones. I played the guy who, at the end with a patch over the eye that upsets Albert Finney.
So in Tom Jones, you must have done a lot of horse work.
Oh, I did I trained all the horses in that. How
did you become a horse?
I'd learned to ride, which I wasn't a rider. I learned to ride in Palm Springs at Smoke Tree Ranch. Cary took me out the first time, and he wouldn't give me a saddle. He said, when you can ride without a saddle, he said, I'll give you a saddle. And that's how I learned to ride, and I became one of the best stunt riders out there. My best subjects were high diving and horses and car turnovers. I came back here to North Carolina with Bob Mitchum and did Thunder Road. I did the turnover on that car. So I went back to England, teamed up with a friend of David Sharp, who was the stunt coordinator on Spartacus, and he knew Paddy Ryan in England. Paddy Ryan took me under his wing, and I never turned back. I mean, I was working all the top movies, and then I became one of the top stunt arrangers. The Avengers came along, and they asked me to do the arranging on the Avengers and shows like that. And the Avengers was my fame because I was the first man to introduce Kung Fu to the world. No one had heard Kung Fu, and Diana Rigg was the first to do it. And then when I was on that, I wanted to. Then I started the way to get in was to write something. So I wrote a couple of Avengers scripts. And Brian Clemens, an old school friend who was the producer on the show, brought the scripts, and I was in on that way. And then I got my chance with Roger Moore to direct second unit and then main unit. And you know the rest of the story. I mean, I'm one of the luckiest fellows in the world.
So you went from stunts to writing as your avenue into directing.
Writing. I managed to write before I was still stunting, and I was working the Avengers and the Department S and another couple of shows, and I wrote the scripts. At the same time, I was stunting on every other day on the Saint with Roger Moore.
So was there a point when you realized you had to stop doing stunts if you were going to be taken seriously as a director?
Absolutely. And it was a very big decision to make because I used to earn a lot of money doing stunts.
Sure.
And then when Brian Clemens said to me, listen, would you like to direct Second Unit? And God, that was the dream of my life. In those days, weekly, I would take home doing stunts somewhere around about probably £1,000 for doing different stunts here and around on different shows.
Right. And
when Albert and Brian asked me to be Second Unit director, it was £250 a week.
Oh.
And I talked to my wife of that time, and I said, I really want to direct so badly. I really want to do it. And we talked, and it was a big loss of money, a great big loss of money. And in the end, I said, no, I want to do it. So I made Joey Dunn the stunt coordinator on The Avengers, and I became Second Unit director.
And you never looked back?
No, never looked back. Then became the problem of getting out of Second Unit director to main unit director.
Right.
Because as you know, Robert, as Second Unit director, you don't have sound. You do car run-bys, people walking doubles and things like that. You very seldom get anything meaty, or you're doing inserts and that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, for our audience who's not aware, a director directs the actors and the dialogue, and they look for performance and matching angles and things like that. And a second unit director is generally given some scenes, go shoot these because the director's too busy or doesn't know how to shoot real action. And as you said, Ray, second unit director goes out with a very small crew, maybe 3 or 4 guys, and the stuntmen and some props, and they go off and do things, and then the director gets all the credit for it.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. You've got it.
Yeah.
That's what was going on, and I knew that I wanted that other chair. And Albert and Brian, they were booked up with directors because the Avengers the directors used to line up to do the Avengers because it was such a popular show. And I was stunting on the Saint quite a lot, so I went to Bob Baker, who was the producer of the Saint in those days, and Roger Moore was the other producer. And I said to Bob, I've been doing second unit on the Avengers. He said, yeah. He started talking to Brian. Brian said, you're doing well. I said, Bob, I want an episode of my own. I'd love to do a Saint. He said, you've got a show. I said, you're joking. He said, no. He said, we're going to give you an episode. So they gave me an episode called The People Importers, and that was my first break. I mean, I went on that floor first morning with a cameraman who didn't want me, the staff, because he wanted to be a director himself, so he wasn't going to be very happy with me. There I am telling him where I want to go and what I want to do. But Roger and everybody else was so good. I mean, no one gave me any problems. Roger stood and did exactly what I wanted him to do. He didn't give me one bit of trouble. And whilst I was doing that episode, The Avengers, I got a director on to direct a show, and he blew it. He got a quarter of the way into the show, and he didn't know what he was doing. I just finished doing the Saint, and Albert and Brian came flying around to the set, the same studio, ABC studio, the Bournemouth, and said, you want to finish a complete Avengers with actors, the whole thing? And I said, absolutely. So I went on, salvaged the show for him, and that was it. From then on, the phone kept ringing. I did Saints, Randall, Hopkirk's Department S, Prisoners, all the lot. And Black Beauty, I won the Montrose Festival for Black Beauty when I did that.
Well, I'm sure that once you stepped in and saved an episode of The Avengers, that the word got out quickly that you could think on your feet, that you could shoot a show on time, on budget, and still get performances. For our audience, television directors are really under a very, very tight schedule. And if you can't maintain a pace, you're not going to work.
And in England in those days, it was a good pace because we had 10 days to shoot a show, not like we are in America, 6, 7, and 8. We had 10 days to shoot an Avengers.
Well, that's because you had tea.
But it was marvelous that break did it all, you see. And then I stayed with the Avengers, did lots of Avengers, so I worked all the time. And then the Avengers caved. But Brian came up with the new Avengers with Joanne Lumley and Gareth Hunt and Patrick McNee. And the new Avengers went along quite nicely. And they had one show there which was called Targets. It was a new Avengers with Lumley, where Lumley was going along rooftops doing lots of stunts and all that, and I directed Targets. Patrick in the break time. Patrick, and he would come home to live in Palm Springs, always. Brian Clemens says to me one day, he said, I'm going over to see Patrick at Palm Springs. He says, I've also got a meeting with Quinn Martin because they're interested in maybe doing the Avengers in America. So he says, you want to come along? So I said, yeah, great. Okay, I'll come over. I've been over for a long time, and I had lots of friends in America.
And at that time, Quinn Martin at that time was one of the premier leading television producers.
A QM production.
Absolutely.
He was huge.
Barnaby Jones and all these shows. And
half the shows on television were Quinn Martin shows, right?
Yeah, he was a god. So I come over with Brian to do this, and Brian's going to pitch the Avengers. So we go to Palm Springs, we visit with Patrick, swim in his pool, come up to Los Angeles, go to the studio, Quinn Martin studio. I go with Brian, and Brian goes in and has this big meeting with Quinn Martin. So whilst he was there, Quinn wanted to see an Avengers, so the new Avengers. So Brian said, I brought a couple of days with me. So they go into Quinn's viewing room, and he puts up targets on the screen. So Quinn Martin and Brian sit all the way through targets. Quinn Martin said, love it, thinks it's good. He said, who directed that show? So Brian said, well, Ray Austin. He said he's outside in the waiting room waiting for me. He said, you're joking. He said, no. He said, I'd like to meet him. So out comes Brian. He said, come in. I go in. I meet Quinn Martin. Quinn Martin said, stay in England. He says, you're starved. Come here. He said, you'll make a fortune. So I said, well, very nice. He said, I'll give you work. You come here.
Another fabulous break.
So I leave the office with Brian. We go into the Beverly Hills Hotel, and Brian says, you should do something about this. He said, I tell you what, he said, I know a guy, he said, who would manage you. He said, because Quinn Martin told me about a man called David Licht. I said, okay, so I call David Licht. David Licht speaks back to Quinn Martin's office, a production man called Fred Ahern, and David wants to meet me. So I meet David, and David says, okay, you need an agent. So I said, well, I haven't got an agent. He said, I'll introduce you one. He said, I'm going to take you to lunch to meet Ronnie Leaf. So I go down, I meet this Ronnie Leaf at lunch. And Ronnie Leaf is this guy, well, you knew Ronnie.
Right, one of the leading agents in town.
Yeah, he was all over he talked. You couldn't get a word in edgeways. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. And he drove me insane, Terry. I go back to England. I'm living in Windsor. And first of all, I go back. Bob Baker calls me. He said, Roger won't do any more Saints. We're going to do it with an actor called Ian Ogilvy, The Return of the Saint. Will you shoot the pilot? So I said, yes. He said, okay. Black Beauty called up and say, we're going with Black Beauty again, which I'd already won the Montrose Festival for them with that. Said, will you sign on to do 6 Black Beauties? I said, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was all timed out with my agent, who was Roger Hancock, in London at that time. They've got that all worked out. And also I was doing a show called Space 1999, which was another funny story, because when they employed me to do Space 1999, I called Jerry Anderson, who was the producer of Space 1999, and said, I'm coming over for a meeting. He said, okay. He said, I want you to meet the stars. So I said, okay, who are the stars? He said, Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. I said, Martin Landau's not going to believe it. I said, I was his stunt double in Hollywood. The whole thing is, I had all these shows lined up. Beautiful, wonderful. I'm working away like crazy. And I go back to Windsor one evening, and the phone goes. And a phone was fixed on the wall in the kitchen in that pretty little house by Windsor Castle. And I'm standing there with a cup of tea and the phone to me. I said, hello. This voice comes on. He said, hi. I said, hi. He says, Ronnie here. I said, Ronnie who? He said, shit. He said, Ronnie Leaf, your agent. I said, okay, yeah. He said, okay, you got a pen? I said, yeah, I got a pen. He said, okay. He said, I want you in Hawaii to shoot a Hawaii 5-0. He said, then Glenn Larson's got a pilot called Swords of Justice with Dak Rumbo. He said, you're going to do that. He said, then Quinn wants you for Barnaby Jones. He said, 3 Barnaby Jones. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, I don't understand. When is this? He said, the Hawaii thing, he said, you're going to have to be there in a week. I said, Ronnie, I said, I can't do this. I've got contracts galore here. I said, I'm working. He said, shit, you work. He said, you work. He said, I'm your agent. He said, I've got you 11 hours of primetime television, which is unheard of, he said. Unheard of. He said, you know...
Well, he was right.
Which it was, which I didn't realize.
Yeah.
He said, I've got you booked out all the way through. He said, I need you over here. I put down the phone, and I said to my wife, then what the hell should I do? She said, you can only go and talk to people. So first thing I called to Brian Clements. I said to Brian, hey, this is what's happened. He said, we've got directors here. He said, you're crazy not to do it. He said, go. Call my agent, Roger Hancock, who I'd never had a contract with in my life. I was only on a handshake. I've been with him for 12 years. He said, don't worry about it. He said, go. He said, you can't turn this down. He said, you have to go. So sure enough, I got on a plane, went to Hawaii and started. And that was it. From then on, the show after show. And as you know, for my sins, I wound up shooting 61 episodes of Zorro as well.
And then when you made that decision to basically jump into the really big pond of Hollywood by accepting those offers, you suddenly found yourself kind of the guy, the go-to guy at both Universal, Quinn Martin, Spelling, Warner's. I mean, you were working everywhere. Most directors are lucky if they can get in with one producer. But
absolutely, and no one ever wanted to see. No one ever wanted to see any footage which I'd shot. Absolutely incredible. You know, when shows come up like Magnum, I salvaged the pilot of Magnum and then took over and did the first 3 shows. They did the 2-hour shows. I did all 3 of those. All those shows just kept falling in my lap. The Gold Monkey, the pilot that I shot and repaired Heart to Heart with RJ, who I knew RJ for many years. Since 53, I knew RJ. But I shot that Love Boat.
Now, let me
I can't remember.
Let me ask you this question. You don't have to remember. It's all on IMDb, and you've got, and you have directing credits that are, I think, unparalleled in their breadth and depth. Of all the series you've worked on, and you've worked on everybody's favorite shows, which one was your favorite show? If you could only shoot one more episode of one more series of anything you've done in your career, which one would it be?
I'm going to surprise you now.
Okay.
You know that? I am going to surprise you. It would be our show, Zorro.
You're kidding?
No.
That does surprise me.
It is one of the happiest shows that I've ever worked on in my life.
The reason I'm surprised is
pleasantly surprised.
That's exactly what my answer when people ask me what show would I like to do again, because it was, as you said, a happy experience.
It was a great experience. There was never any trouble on Zorro. You've been in this industry a long time. You've suffered the things that we have to suffer as directors and writers, where you've got the network and the Black Tower climbing down your neck, telling you to do this, telling you need another close-up, you want this, you want that, and we're going to change that, we're going to do that. On Zorro, we were out there, we were a family on our own. Very seldom did we ever see anyone from the Family Channel and have drastic requests to reshoot this or redo that, or we weren't going to let that person do it. We were our own people out there. We were a family. We had a good time. It was great to get up in the morning and go to that location or the studio. It was a trouble-free show for me. And there was never any problem knowing the phone was going to go and someone would say, oh, we're going to recast that, or we're going to do this, or we need more close-ups, or you're not on time and one thing or another. It was a dream to me, that show. And as you know, I shot 61 episodes of that and camera operated all but 13.
Well, you know, Ray, when I was on the set just visiting, I saw how good you were with the actors. Do you feel like because you started out as a stuntman, that really helped you?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you were on the other side?
I think so. I understood actors, or I think I understand actors. And I wasn't like a lot of the directors in Hollywood and some in England, where a lot of the directors walk on a set and they say to the actors, right, you stand there, you come in there, you move over here. Immediately, you've alienated your actors for a start. You're putting your ideas into their heads, and it's not the way to direct. When I go onto a show or start a scene, I open up a room, or the room is there, I put the actors in the room, I say, hey, guys, show me what you think. Show me what the scene is. And I let them walk it. Now, I'm not saying I will not manipulate them to go over to the other side or come closer to someone else so I can get a 2-shot, or don't turn around there, save me doing a close-up. I still do that, but I do it very craftily so it doesn't interrupt the things that they're doing, because so many times I've seen people, and I've done it once or twice myself, force someone into doing something my way, and then they've shown me the way they were going to do it, or by accident I've seen it, and I think to myself, what an idiot, that was so much better than what I had. Why didn't I listen and watch them do it first? Because it would have been much better.
Right. Yeah, I think some directors do not understand the fact that filmmaking is truly a collaborative process.
Absolutely.
And when you don't let people who are creative, actors in particular, you don't let them participate, what you get is kind of a passive aggressive response. And it really hurts the final product. I think one of the things that made Zorro really so wonderful for all of us, I think we should give two guys credit. One is Duncan Regehr, who was the most stand-up star of any show I've ever worked with. And the other was Gary Goodman, who was the most easygoing, hands-off producer. He let us just do the job.
Everybody on that show was good. I mean, even the ones that had to leave it through the years, Ephraim and Michael Tyler and that, up until the time that they decided they weren't going to be with us anymore, they were still a joy to work with. They were still fun to work with.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things that I've always said, and I say it to this day, from the time I came out of the army and got into the industry, the film industry, I've never been to work a day in my life.
Yes,
I've never been to work
That's
ever.
true. It really is just a lot of fun when you're doing it right.
Oh, a new adventure every day.
Yeah.
You open a script, you turn a page, you're either doing a murder, you're doing a car chase, someone in love having a dinner party. They're all new adventures every day. We got the biggest box of toys in the world to play with.
Now, Ray, I always like to ask this, and since you've worked with so many famous actors, would you care to name any of your favorite and not so favorite?
I would love to shoot a whole day scene using Robert Wagner and Roger Moore.
Okay.
All day long, because they're the best in the world to work with. I mean, they are absolute great fun, good actors, and they do anything you ask them to do, and there's never any problem.
And they're just good guys, yeah.
Yes, just good guys. I wouldn't ever want to work again with Orson Welles. I don't like him very much. Joseph Cotton, I love. Another one I loved, and Joseph Cotton in Palm Springs, as you probably know, was my best man.
Oh, really?
Didn't
he
know
was
that.
my best man, Joseph. When I came over and started this big contract for Ronnie Leaf, I then went to do a show called Love Boat. In amongst all that stuff, I did Love Boat.
Right.
And now you've got to think, this is a Cockney boy, grew up in the war years, in London, dodging bombs, going to Saturday morning pictures or going to the pictures with my mum and dad in the week and seeing the big American stars in their black and white movies and all these famous people. I walk onto the set of Love Boat after I'd already cast with everybody, you know, and as you know, you don't get much say in the casting as a director in those shows because they know who they want, the producers.
Aaron Spelling had his own Rolodex, right?
Yeah, they got that. But I walk onto the set to shoot an episode of Love Boat, and this was my lineup. Joseph Cotton, Olivia de Havilland, Farley Granger, Don Amici,
Wow,
Cesar Romero, and Helen Hayes.
Well, you don't get bigger than that in the pantheon
This is this
of
Cockney
actors.
boy walking on there with his script under his arm to go and sit in his chair, which says director. I'm going to direct these people who I remember going and watching with my mum and dad at the cinema, the Regal in Wimbledon and South Wimbledon during the war years. It was mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing.
That is an incredible transition.
You see, I've had the best of it. I mean, no one who's coming into the industry now, and a lot of them that are already in it, are never going to have the life what I had.
No.
They're never going to shoot the scenes which I've shot and the memories I have of the film industry and what the film industry is about. It's never going to happen again. Those days are gone. I mean, I worked Cleopatra. I knew Elizabeth. I knew Richard very well.
Well, Ray, I have to ask you, because this is the question that I know our audience would love for me to ask, is just how beautiful was Elizabeth Taylor in person?
She's very beautiful. She was very, very beautiful girl. I knew Elizabeth Taylor since 1953. I used to be friends with her, Roddy McDowell, Mickey Rooney, and Jackie Cooper. And they were all gangs together, and we used to play and laugh, and Hoy was there because Hoy knew them all, but Elizabeth was very, very beautiful. I would say top of the rack in those days for me was the most beautiful, I think, was Elizabeth. Elizabeth, Sid Charisse. Sid Charisse was a knockout. Ava Gardner, knockout. Sophia Loren.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy, Sophia Loren.
Hey, Ray.
She threw me into the Thames, Sophia Loren, on a picture called The Millionaires.
Ah.
I doubled Dennis Price on that, and she threw me into the Thames, Sophia, on that one.
You poor
But I'd
thing.
already met Sophia in Spain when we did Pride and the Passion.
So, Ray, we've taken up so much of your time already, and I really appreciate it. I want to ask you a couple more questions. One is for our audience of people who think that Hollywood is where they need to be. What advice would you give to those hoping to make it in the business today?
One thing I would think is one of the best things to do, which I wish I'd have done, but unfortunately I got on without it, all right, is go via editing, because it's a great experience to find out what happens to that piece of film once it's gobbled up by that camera and comes out the other end. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the art of editing and what you can do and what you can't do.
Right.
So they think, that you just point a camera and it comes through on a disc now or on a chip or on whatever it is, and that's it. Know how you edit that and how you can manipulate that piece of film which you've shot. I think that's one of the places to go. The other thing is have another job so you can pursue it. You can't go into this industry cold as an actor, especially as an actor, unless you've got a backup. So many people think that they're going to walk in the door, get the audition, and it's over. It's not. You've got to have another profession. It's a sad way to say it, but they have to. But to go in the director's chair, it's hard work. There's a lot of directors out there, but I still think the best. Film. They put it on the page, then so many people put their hands on it or put it in their computer and do rewrites and changes and think they know better, that the original thing is not there anymore. I'm not explaining this very well, but I get disappointed. I read a script, or I used to read a script, and it used to read beautifully, but the time I got to go to the floor with it, so many other people have made changes and done things, the original concept had gone. You think back to great movies, Strangers on a Train, where they were beautiful movies, well thought out, well plotted, and the pace was absolutely wonderful. They're not there anymore. People change. There's so many writers involved in one thing now, as producer, stroke producer, stroke producer.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about executives, but they seem to have some impact these days. And I think
they have a lot of impact.
That's one of the things that made Zorro such a great experience for me as a writer. You and I and Philip Taylor basically made that show happen from a story and script standpoint. Nobody was interfering, which leads me to
yeah. Let me tell a story about you as a writer on that bloody show. For the audience, our audience point of view, imagine shooting Zorro out in a place called Colmenar in Spain on a flat piece of desert where we built a little Los Angeles in this little shrubland, and I would get scripts through from our dear friend Robert McCullough, and it would say, as often as not, in practically every other script, Zorro jumps out of the tree, or Zorro swings into the tree, or the man hides in the tree. And I called Robert one day and I said, don't do this to me. There are no fucking trees here. I said, you wait until you come here. You'll see for yourself. And sure enough, you came and directed some shows.
Right,
and you saw it. We didn't have any bloody trees.
There's no trees and hotter than hell.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean, every writer used to put it in the script. Zorro rides under the tree. There are no bloody trees, I kept saying. There aren't any trees here.
There were a couple of bushes, as I recall. Right,
yeah, they were bushes.
Right. Now you have not... You're simply a ceaseless creative force, and I want to touch upon Beaufort Sloane. Tell us about your novel career. You have, 4 or 5 books out now, don't you?
Well, 4. Well, when we were shooting in Spain, Wendy was over in Spain with me, staying at an apartment, and she's got bored with it. She said, I'm going to write a book. So she sat down in that apartment where we were living while I was shooting out in the Colmenar, and she wrote her first book, Leave the Killing to Me.
Right.
And got it published. And she wrote Dead on Cue, and the latest one of hers is Walking the Ladies. But the whole point is that I got a little bit jelly belly. I got a little bit jealous over when it was going on and that, and thought, writing and one thing and another. I want to write a book. So years later, I sat down and I wanted to write a book. So I came up with this character called Buford Sloane, which was Wilfred Brimley.
Right.
And I said to Wilford, listen, I'm going to write a book and the character's going to be based on you. Do you mind? He said, no, do what you like. He said, use it. Because I was doing Our House with him at that stage, shooting the show Our House. And so I started writing this book, and it got more like Wilfred Brimley than it did Buford Sloane. So I called Wilford again. I said to him, listen, I know you said I could do this, but it's really turning out to be you. I said, not Buford Sloane. I mean, really. He said, that's okay. I don't mind. And he also said to me, and to work with you, he said, I'd wear boots 2 sizes too small and walk 50 miles to work with you as a director, which I thought was a great, nice thing for him to say for me. So anyway, I wrote Buford Sloane. And then I wrote 3 Buford Sloanes, then I wrote a thriller. But unless you've got a bestseller, and you really have a bestseller, you're not going to make a living out of writing books. You've really got to sit down and want to write. But I wrote 3 of those. I guess I've earned a lot more than that one. But you can't earn a living being a writer unless you have got a bestseller.
Well, let's make it a bestseller. I want the audience to know all your books are available at Amazon.com.
It'll be on our website.
That's I compliment you because I know a lot of people who say they're going to write a book.
And they never do.
And they never put their butt in the chair.
Now, Ray, something I want to touch upon really quickly. You are the only Baron that I know. And would you like to touch upon how that happened?
Well, it's not that I was the Baron. I was deeded the title from Wendy's side of the family,
right,
so that she could keep her title. When she married me, she became a Mrs. Mrs. But to keep her title as lady at that stage, which she would have to be married to someone who was a lord or a baron or something. And her great-grandfather and his grandfather had that title of the Baron of Delvin, and I then was deeded that title through the barony and through the heraldry of Ireland to take the Irish title, which purely did that for me. So I became the Baron de Vere Austin of Delvin, and Wendy stays as the Baroness de Vere Austin of Delvin.
Well, I must say, you are the first member of royalty to be.
No, it's not royalty.
To be a guest.
It's not royalty. It's not royalty. I think it's 7,933 people, and I could be king.
There you go. Well, you never know. Things happen.
No.
Well, Ray, you're actually closer than Bob is.
Right.
Well, I know, yeah, but it's an hereditary title. It's not through my family. It's an hereditary title.
It's great fun, and it's been great fun talking to you. I can't tell you how much.
It's nice talking to you guys.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate this, and I think that your story it's a piece of history, and it's inspirational because I think it shows that people who put themselves out there, good things happen. If you had been a reluctant individual who was afraid to step forward, if you didn't take that punch on the chin, things never may have gone this way.
A few years ago, I think 4 years ago, something like that, they asked me to be key speaker at Chichester University for the 50th anniversary of The Avengers. And I walk in through the auditorium onto the stage, and the lights were halfway up. There was over 300 people in there, and most of them, as far as I'm concerned, were children. There was very few people of my age. How could these people know the Avengers? They're all too young.
I think that shows that what we do actually matters.
Oh, it does.
Ray, before we let you go, I'm just dying to ask you, because I know I'll be asked about this regarding you and your voice. How many times have people said to you, you sound like Cary Grant?
It still happens, probably once a day. Still happens.
Now, before you met him, did you sound like him?
Yes, for the simple reason, you see, Cary was a Cockney as well. Well, he wasn't a Cockney. He was born in Bristol, but he grew up in London, so he was a Cockney. And he knew he had to get out of that Cockney accent, that he wouldn't work. But once he tried to change the Cockney accent, that's when his accent arrived.
Tell me, what do you do besides lure men to their doom on the 20th Century Limited?
That's how it all happened. Because you see, if you're a Cockney, you're sort of speaking like that, ain't you? And you're
Like
saying
the
whatever you
Beatles.
want.
I mean, the Beatles had
yeah, like
that
the Beatles
accent.
used to do. You know what I mean, love? That's the way it has to go. And that's the way you're going to talk, you see. Now, if I'm going to slow that down and something to make it sound better so the Americans can understand me, I've really got to try to slow that down and see if I can get someone to understand me. So it's better that I do it that way. So if I practice, well, you know what I mean. So I practice and I've got this now. And I love you and I think you're marvelous.
That's funny. Ray, this has been fantastic. I love you, man. I can't thank you enough for this.
And please send our love to Wendy.
I will do. And when you get a show underway, don't forget, I've still got lots of energy and I'll come and direct.
Trust me on that. You got it, man. All right.
Okay, God bless.
Very best. Bye-bye.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.
I just loved interviewing Ray.
You know, he's a source of real Hollywood history. Just fascinating stuff.
So what was it with you with the trees? He mentioned that you kept putting trees in every scene at Zorro.
Well, I was writing and producing, and half the time I wasn't even in Spain with Ray. Ray was there all the time, in the heat, the wind, the snow, the rain.
Where were you?
I was in Hollywood writing the scripts. It was an intercontinental kind of a production. It was fascinating how we pulled this thing off. So Philip Taylor and I were sitting around in Hollywood. We're writing scripts about what's going on in Spain, and we're describing action sequences that, people jump out of trees.
I'm surprised you didn't put palm trees in there since you were in Santa Barbara.
I would love to have. We were really shooting out in the middle of the desert, and it was very frustrating for Ray, I'm sure, to get a script that said, and Zorro jumps out of a tree.
I think that was quite a compliment he gave you regarding it was his favorite show to work on.
Hey, you know what? Ray is the one who made it happen.
I think it must have been the sangria.
It could have been the sangria.
In Spain.
And we had I just recall we had a fabulous time with him and his wife Wendy in Madrid.
Lovely people.
It was great. I'm just so glad we had a chance to talk to him. Now listen, before we go, I want to remind our listeners, be sure to go to the website at wherehollywoodhides.com and take a look at our new book, Where Hollywood Hides Santa Barbara.
Celebrities in Paradise.
It's a hardcover full-color edition. It's available on Amazon, or you can go straight to our website at wherehollywoodhides.com and pick it up with free shipping. You'll save yourself $5 or $6.
It's a great, quick read and fabulous pictures.
And it's a fabulous Valentine's gift for Mom.
That's true.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. This is Bob McCullough.
And this is Suzanne Herrera McCullough, and we'll see you at the movies.
They come from Chilicotes and Paducas with their bazookas to get their names up in lights.
All armed with photos from local rotos, with their hair in ribbons and legs in tights. Hooray for Hollywood! You have no way of knowing who'll be good.
Maybe you'll be another Papa Dion, your name in neon. If you get lucky, you could. Yes, buddy, you'll arrive if you can top his 5. Hooray for Hollywood!
Hooray for Hollywood!